Sexual astrology. What's your cosmic kink? Yep, we're going there. We're taking one of the oldest systems for self-discovery, astrology, and we are zeroing in on, well, the juicy stuff, sex, desire, and what really makes us tick.
I mean, have you ever just stopped and wondered, why them? Why am I drawn to this specific person, or even this specific thing? What's that invisible pull, that spark, that chemistry that you feel with some people and, just nothing with others?
Well, for ages, some people have looked up to the stars for those very answers. Not just to see what's coming, but to figure out who they are right now. And yeah, that definitely includes our deepest, most private desires. So today, we're going to explore what the sources have to say about this. Let's call it a cosmic map to our own sexuality.
Okay, so first things first. To even begin to understand this, we got to talk about the main characters in our cosmic story. In astrology, there are a couple of planets that are basically the superstars of our love lives and, our libidos.
All right, so you've got Venus and Mars. Think of it like this. Venus is your vibe. It's your personal magnetism, what you find attractive, your sensuality. It's how you just kind of pull people and pleasure towards you. Mars, though, Mars is the gas pedal. It's your raw, primal drive, your passion. It's that assertive energy that makes you go get what you want. And figuring out how these two dance together in your birth chart, that's basically the foundation of all of this.
But here's the thing. These planets aren't just floating around on their own. They're constantly talking to each other, forming these relationships called aspects. And whether they're getting along perfectly or, having a major cosmic argument, these angles are said to create all these unique quirks in our personality, especially when it comes to sex.
And this is where it gets really fascinating, because people are always adding new layers to these old ideas. For example, I came across this online discussion where someone analyzed a bunch of charts and pointed out a pattern with the planet Uranus. Uranus is the rebel, the planet of doing things differently. And this person suggested a link between it and, well, sexual liberation and attractions that go against the grain.
But, of course, not everyone just bought it. Almost right away, other people in the forum were like, whoa, hold on. 18 charts isn't exactly a huge study. They questioned the whole method. And honestly, that's a perfect example of how this stuff works. It's a living conversation with people constantly challenging and re-examining these ideas.
Okay, let's be real. This is probably the part you've been waiting for. We're going to get into the specifics sign by sign. Looking at everything from astrological books to online forums, there are some pretty distinct kinks and fantasies linked to each of the 12 signs.
And what's so wild is how much they seem to make sense, They connect right back to the sign's basic personality. So you get Aries, the fiery warrior, linked to stuff like impact play. Then you have Taurus, the super sensual earth sign, connected to food play. Gemini, the chatterbox of the Zodiac, dirty talk, of course. And detail-oriented Virgo, the precision of rope bondage. I mean, look at the rest. They each kind of tell a little story.
And it just keeps going. The interpretations are all over the map. You have Libra, the sign of beauty and art, linked to the visual artistry of Shibari. And Scorpio, come on. Is anyone surprised that the most intense sign is tied to BDSM and power exchange? Then you've got a really modern one, Aquarius. The brainy, future-focused sign gets linked to ASMR. It just goes to show how these old archetypes are always getting updated.
So that's what's going on with you, individually. But what happens when two people get in a room together, right? Now we're talking about cosmic compatibility, or if you want a fancy astrology term, synastry.
And just so you know, it's way deeper than just, what's your sun sign? Real compatibility analysis is like a full diagnostic. Astrologers compare everything. They look at your moon signs to check your emotional wiring, your sun signs to see if your basic life paths are in sync, Mercury for communication style, Venus for what you both enjoy, and, you guessed it, Mars to see if there's any actual, sexual spark.
And this is where you get those classic good and bad matchups. For instance, take an Aries, all fire and action. They're supposedly a great match for a quick-witted, curious Gemini. Total excitement. But that same high-energy Aries matched with a slow and steady Taurus? Yeah, the sources say that can cause some considerable friction.
And you see this pattern again and again. Let's stick with Gemini. That same Gemini that clicks so well with Aries? They're called an ideal mating for a big, theatrical Leo. They feed off each other's energy. But pair that same Gemini with a more possessive Taurus, the books literally call it a poor affair. See? It's all about how those different energies vibe, or don't.
But look, everything we've talked about with sun signs, honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. To really get the full story, you have to look at the entire birth chart. It's a way more complicated and, frankly, a way more interesting puzzle.
So beyond just the planets, there are these other super sensitive points in the chart. There's the ascendant, or your rising sign. That's kind of like your social mask, how you come across to people. And when someone's chart connects with that point, it feels electric. And then there's this other point, it's called the vertex. It's a bit more abstract, but astrologers link it to fated encounters. That feeling of, I think I've met you before. Just instant magnetic attraction.
Okay, so we've talked planets, kinks, who gets along with who. What's the point of all this? What are we supposed to do with it?
Well, what it seems to come down to is that astrology can be a language, a way to explore ourselves. It gives you these symbols and archetypes that might help you put words to your desires, to see your own patterns. And maybe, just maybe, it can help us understand that everyone's wired a little differently when it comes to what turns them on.